Hi, here I wanted to talk about Donald Trump's recent direct involvement in the Israel-Iran war without any approval by US Congress. In particular, the alleged attack on Iran's underground nuclear facilities by B-2 stealth bombers, and with that the potential start of World War III, especially considering also the potential implosion of supply chains through the closing of the sea Strait of Hormuz. But now it seems like Iran knew for a long time of that attack and brought its nuclear material to a safe place ahead of the attack. Apparently, the Americans even told them about the attack. And it's even questioned now whether there were any B-2 bombers involved. And similar, the Iranian Revenge was rather a weak attack on some minor US military bases, which hardly caused any damage at all. The impression is that this is just following a massive script, which is further enhanced with the symbolic meaning of the summer solstice, the 21st of June, when the attack took place. The summer solstice stands for transformation, culmination, the beginning of the decline into darkness by the shortening of daylight until end of December. Also, the nuclear facility is called Fordo, which sounds like Mordor from The Lord of the Rings, the dark and desolate place in the Middle Earth, with the Mount Doom, the place to destroy the One Ring. Not to mention that the Top Gun sequel played out this scenario in all patriotic detail, convincing the masses of the rightfulness of such an attack. Due to all the theatrical aspects and the biblical significance of the place, the quote "wars and rumors of wars" comes to mind from the Gospel of Matthew in the New Testament, where Jesus spoke to his disciples on the Mount of Olives. They asked him about the signs of his return and the end of age. He warns of false messiahs, wars and rumors of wars, including, in our modern language, propaganda, psychological warfare, turmoil, instabilities, riots, famines, earthquakes, persecutions, betrayal, and widespread deception. But also he says, but the end is not yet. So it's basically about the birthing pains. So Trump, with his closeness to Israel, is seen by some as a false messiah from Jewish tradition, who is a kind of fiery teacher, a cleansing fire for global purification or deception. You might also see some connection to the perfect red heifer, the red cow, mentioned in the Torah, whose ashes are used to purify those who are ritually unclean, including the priests, which is considered an essential step for rebuilding of the third temple, which signals the coming of the Messiah. Due to all the biblical symbolism, I wanted to look at the president's announcement from the perspective of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, from the book of Revelation 6:1-8. Let's get started.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities.
This is already interesting. As a commander-in-chief, the president could have done this alone, but he decided to have three other people with him. Here on the left we see the Vice President J.D. Vance. He stands somehow separate and has a blue tie and is folding his hands, and he has a very grim look and generally watches the president, which makes the dynamic somewhat strange and his role somewhat special. And then to the president's left we have the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, largely covered by the president and the shortest. And then we have on the far left we have the Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. So as I said, the president as a commander-in-chief could have done this alone, or he could have done even a larger team, including some women. So he could have included, for instance, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirsti Noem, or the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, John Chadcliffe. But he chose 3 people. Maybe it's man's business. So Trump is generally shown with a reddish or orange-red face, presumably because of a fake tan. So the color red means blood. If he makes a connection with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, so he would represent war or military conflict or a societal breakdown. And in paintings of the horsemen of the apocalypse, he would be shown with a great sword riding a red horse. So after war, what you normally would get is famine, and this is essentially, or could potentially be represented by Rubio here in the background. He's also the smallest. So he would sit on a black horse, representing economic collapse, inflation, mourning, scarcity, and the rider would hold a scale, representing scarcity. And this again in sequence would be followed by the horseman on the white horse, representing conquest. So he would be wearing an arrow and a crown, in this case Pete Hexes, but it's often also represented by pestilence. So that might indicate that there's actually another pandemic coming, because that would follow famine. However, what is interesting, the order changes. Let's look at this again. So first we see Pete Hexes, which represent conquest and pestilence. He's first next to Donald Trump. So that could represent the corona pandemic, in particular the crown he would wear on the paintings represents corona. But then he changes the position and moves to the far left.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out...
So now he moved to the very far left, meaning there might be another pandemic coming. You might say this might be just an accident or a little mistake when they walk in, a little confusion. However, I would imagine this is extremely well rehearsed, and I also get a bit of the vibes that this is just an AI video. Yeah, I'm not fully sure. It could be 70% chance this is AI, just a personal feeling. I don't feel like these are real people in front of me. In particular, Donald Trump looks too youthful. When you see photos of him on the golf course, he looks like an old man with a belly. And here he looks like a young stud. But this is just an impression I have. If it were AI, then it would be even less clear why there was this mistake. Of course, it could be an alibi, including small mistakes to make it look real. So, who knows? And now we come to J.D. Vance. So the last one, also in sequence, in chronological sequence, would be Math Death. So Death sitting on the pale horse. And so this one here is somewhat special because he's separated and he has a dark tie and he has folded hands. He gives the impression of a mortician. And because of the grim look generally at the president, it might also mean that he has still a special role to play. Maybe one day Donald Trump is not president anymore and then he, as a vice president, steps in. That would be the case if Donald Trump would be impeached or if he would be impossible to act as a president. So he would become automatically sworn in. Let's look a little more.
Massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime.
So here we see also the stretched out arms, which might also give the impression of the spear or the arrow for the rider on the white horse, representing conquest.
Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
So we see, as usual, for Donald Trump, his teeth, giving him the impression of aggression. Again, with the red face and the red tie, this would represent the rider on the red horse, war. And here we see J.D. Vance with his critical look looking at the president for extended periods of time. with a larger distance, a special role he might be playing.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not,
So now they must make peace after being bombed. There's nice Orwellian speech. War is peace. All gets twisted and turned upside down.
future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
We see again his teeth, the aggression. There's the anger now in his forehead, the eyebrows.
For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roads.
So here we see the justification of the war. There's the good guys and the others are the bad guys. All is justified. The fact that this is very well rehearsed, I want to go to the very end.
God bless the Middle East, God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them.
They close their eyes like in prayer, and his voice breaks slightly when he says God. So here's some impression of authenticity or really good acting.
God bless the Middle East, God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
America is last. I thought it's America first. So what I wanted to show, and I can't see it in the clip now, is that these three guys now walk behind each other on the right and then Donald Trump on the left so we can see him. So again we see how staged it all is, how well rehearsed it is. So that's, I'm mentioning it because then the initial mistakes they made in the arrangement seems more on purpose if everything else was very much arranged. So in summary, we saw a lot of symbolism. Some is admittedly rather far-fetched and very speculative. The US-Israel-Iran conflict cost actual lives, and on the other hand it seems like a gigantic joke at the expense of the ordinary people. None of the ordinary people want war. We all want the same. We want to raise our families in peace. We want our children to have good, fulfilling lives. We want to meet friends and family. We want good food. We want a nice place to live in, ideally close to nature, in peace and harmony. And surely each time civilians get bombed, and the worst of it all is that the commands of a handful of lunatics are followed by the military to the T, basically bombing themselves, as there is no difference between us and them. We all want peace. With this I close here. I thank you very much for listening and for your support. Despite the declining viewers, it's heavily shadow banned, the channel, and I talk to you next time. Thank you again and bye.
I want to return to the incident that you referenced a minute ago that occurred in Monterey, California in October 2017. At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct?
I believe so.
And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged, fully
You-
investigated, and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime. That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And
With these nice, beautiful words, I'm finishing for today. Thank you very much again and bye.